Want to welcome everybody to the regular call meeting of the CERS Board for December 2nd, 2024. Eric, would you read the opening statement for us, please?
Sure. This is a regular meeting of the County Employees Retirement System Board of Trustees. This meeting is being broadcast via video teleconference pursuant to KRS 61-826 and may be viewed by the public at the Kentucky Public Pensions Authority offices located at 1260 Louisville Road in Frankfort, Kentucky. It is also being broadcast to the public live via Facebook. If you are speaking and are not appearing by video, please identify yourself before talking. If the video or audio broadcast is interrupted, we will attempt to reestablish a connection. If a connection cannot be reestablished within 30 minutes, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled to a later date.
Okay. Thank you. Sherry, would you take the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Cheatham,
Here.
Dr. Carver,
Here.
Mr. Foster,
Here.
Mr. Fulkerson,
Here.
Dr. Hackbart,
Here.
Dr. Milkman, Mr. O'Meara,
Here.
Ms. Pendergrass,
Here.
and Mr. Powell.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Sherry, I understand we have some public comment that needs to be read into the record.
Yes, sir. This is one public comment that we received, and it is from an Andrew Parrish and reads as follows. Good morning. I hope you all are doing well, and I appreciate your commitment to the Commonwealth and the ones you serve. I would like to briefly introduce myself. My name is A.J. Parrish, and I currently serve as the night shift sergeant for the Paducah Police Department and am under the Tier 3 system as I joined the force in May of 2014. I am submitting this comment to you all because I want to bring to light an issue with retention among law enforcement that you are likely all too familiar with. While the issue is affecting agencies nationwide, I want to focus on our issue specifically here in Kentucky. Currently, the Commonwealth offers 3 tiers for retirement, and I will focus on the one that is currently in effect as of January 1, 2014, which is Tier 3. Essentially, peace officers are no longer under a pension-style retirement, but rather a 401k. Unlike the other retirement tiers prior to 2014, under Tier 3, the participant has the option to leave law enforcement and take their 401k balance with them. Specifically, they are vested after 60 months or 5 years of employment. What this means is that instead of staying in law enforcement for 25 years, officers can now leave law enforcement at 5 years of service and go to work in the private sector with their 401k. This is causing a massive strain on law enforcement agencies across the Commonwealth to retain seasoned veteran officers. Instead, agencies are now forced to cycle through hiring young officers, send them to the academy to get trained, and then hope that they will stay faithful to law enforcement for 25 years. While this seems grim, I do have a solution to this issue. In January, House Bill 143 was introduced, which would afford Tier 3 participants the option of going to Tier 2. This would greatly benefit the safety and security of the communities within our Commonwealth by retaining law enforcement professionals for 25 years to reach full retirement under the pension system. I humbly request you take some time to fully research this issue and support the efforts to afford us the opportunity to go from a Tier 3 retirement system to Tier 2. I would be happy to discuss this issue further and can be reached via email or by phone, and he provided his phone number, but I will not read it. Again, thank you for your time and support in this matter. Thank you. Mr. Cheatham, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I do want Mr. Parrish to realize that we did hear his comments. We do fully understand the challenge that our first responders are having. Ed, if you don't mind, if you'll draft a response to Mr. Parrish and give him an opportunity to give us feedback if he likes. With that, I'm going to move on to approval of minutes. You had distributed in your packet 3 sets of minutes. I'm going to take those in order. First set was for October the 10th, 2024. Are there any additions, changes, or deletions that need to be made to these minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
A motion by JT, a second, please.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes for October 10th as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Second set of minutes are for the meeting of October the 16th, 2024. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions that need to be made to these minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Hackford.
Second. Dr. Carver.
Dr. Carver, thank you. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. And the third set of minutes are from the meeting of November 4th, 2024. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions to these minutes? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Bill. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Packard. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as presented for the November 4th meeting signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. I'm going to make my statement real short and sweet. I think we've got a full agenda today. I know it's holiday season, but it seems like a lot of things have come to a head at the end of the year, as they normally do. Look forward to addressing the first independent SAFR evaluations, recommended IPS today, as well as strategic plan. I'm happy to see that there's movement going on with several of the legal issues we've had outstanding. So without further ado, we'll move on into that agenda. First on the docket is the Actuarial Committee. Mr. Foster, would you like to give us your report, sir?
Yes, sir. The Actuarial Committee met on the 4th of November, as I recall, to review a report from GRS that outlined the results of the 2024 actuarial evaluations. That it was designed to assist our board in establishing employer contribution rates for the upcoming fiscal year. And Danny or Janie, if you might want to summarize that to our full board, and then I'll be prepared to make a motion on behalf of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Janie, or
Yeah, this is Danny White with GRS. Janie's on here as well. We nothing's changed since we last presented in November to the committee and to the board. We're happy to go through the presentation again, or if you wish, we could just hit the highlights. Thank you. The highlights were right there, the previous page. And that is the required employer contribution for the non-HAS will go down about a little over 1%. And for the CRS hazardous, it'll go down by 2.88%. To us, that's the highlight. With that, I'll open up to any questions that anybody may have after going through, a more thorough review of the information we previously provided.
if you don't mind, Danny, just if you hit the highlights of why the contribution rate recommended to
Absolutely.
take it down.
Absolutely. Looking for a page. If we go to page 22. So I think the highlights of it is it was the increase in payroll for the non-haz and hazardous. And so where you can think of this as, you got the same dollar amounts to spread over to finance the unfunded liability. You have a dollar amount you have to find. We're anticipating contributions to finance. Since the payroll is bigger, the contributions needed as a percentage of payroll goes down. And so this is a positive thing, even though there was a liability loss because of the increase in pay, larger benefits. It is offset by, in terms of the contribution rate, it's offset because you're also spreading that cost over a larger payroll base. If we go down to the next slide, 23, so that on the liability, and then you think of it on the asset side, you had a favorable year of investment returns for FY 2024. Some of that is recognized this year. That's the bottom line. 261 million in asset gains recognized this year. Due to a 5-year smoothing, we're taking out that volatility, that short-term volatility in investment returns. So there's more deferred in investment gains that'll be recognized in future years. So when we get to the projections, see, I'm looking at see if we go to slide 36, please. For the non-haz, you can see where the contributions, we're looking at the bottom line there for the C non-haz, that bottom left-hand corner where you see the black line, that's the employer contribution percentage. You've actually got some tailwind coming in there. So you see it at about 20% of pay, and then it's projected to continue to decline. And the reason for that is we have those deferred investment gains that'll be gradually recognized over the next few years. And it's going to be the same story for the hazardous. It's just a different scale. So again, I think, it's one of those, if I was going to sum it up, to write down your diary for 2024, that it was a positive year for the C plans. It isn't always that way. So when it does happen, I think it's worthwhile to take a note of it and try to remember that, because especially on the investments, that's where the biggest uncertainty occurs. Janie, do you have any other comments? May have lost her. Okay.
Yeah, just for the record, this is all with an eye towards being fully funded by the end of the actuarial period of 2049, correct?
That is correct. That was when the 2019 unfunded base was established and closed off. So that base had a 30-year funding period. So it was established 2019. So by 2049, that would be ultimately funded, fully financed. Now, as we're too far away to really begin discussing this or for actionable items, but just know that as we get closer to that year, I'm sure there'll be some adjustments in the funding strategy made, so you don't have that big cliff where we're going from 20% of pay down to 5% of pay in 1 year. There'll be more of a glide path, I'm sure, and that'll be discussed with the legislators. But the funding amortization is all built in statute, so we're following that policy written in statute as it's currently written until it's further modified.
Any questions for Danny or Janie?
Just a quick question. Do you do any analysis in terms of doing a blending strategy in terms of avoiding the cliff effect? And maybe adjusting more quickly if investment returns or basically following the pattern that you anticipate?
We did some work with the legislative research group. It was a bigger focus on the K non-HAS system than the C, but it's the same outcome that of what that I refer to it as a retranche of the amortization layers. The other thing to keep in mind is as we have new layers, each new year you get gains or losses that are built in that are not reflected in this projection, just because we don't know what those gains or losses look like yet. But as those get incorporated in, you're going to see subtle shifts or changes. But the overall magnitude of what you see, the premise, the basic principle of that big amortization base right now being paid off still stands. But when we did that analysis and we looked at it with the LRC is, okay, this was good to look at. We've done our basis. You did your due diligence on looking at this, what it will look like, and it's like it's time to table it and to dust it off as you get closer there. Perhaps in the year 2040 or so, if we're still around. But
Or else you have to worry about it.
Absolutely. At the point being is the mindset and the track at this moment is to increase the funded ratio, to increase the funded status of the plan. And I think this current funding strategy does a good job at doing that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
thank you.
I was on,
Right.
I was on mute again. Anybody have any other questions for Danny or Janie? I just one. I got one question, Danny, just to get clarification more for myself. The unfunded mandate. To what extent do the folks that are in Tier 3 add to that unfunded liability?
We don't assign assets to each tier. It's all pooled together between tier 1, 2, and 3. Unlike where we separate assets between the non-has and has. Of this, I'm going to answer in a few different statistics to give you a mind of this. Over half the total liability for the C non-has is attributable to retirees. So this is all people that no longer work here, or they're actually receiving benefits, that put in their time and are now drawing their benefits. So, that's the bulk of the liability goes to them rather than the active members. When you look at the active members who come in since 2014, I think we're at a point now where almost half, maybe a little more than half of the active members are earning Tier 3 benefits. However, on a liability side, if you just look at the liability component itself, we're probably making up only maybe 10% of the total liability. It's just these people are younger, still in their careers, and have not yet earn their full liability or their full benefit, like such as your more seasoned Tier 1, Tier 2 members. And so of that, it just takes time to accumulate and work through. So even though you've got half the members on a liability side, it's a much smaller component of the plan.
Remaining Tier 1 and Tier 2 amount to the other 40%.
Yeah, for active members, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And That's rough. Those are ballpark estimates. Just going from memory.
I appreciate that. I thought that'd be somewhat informative to a lot of people. All right, Mike, anything else?
Yes, sir. And the actuarial committee discussed and was pleased to hear the report that our investment return exceeds the assumed rate originally, and contribution rates have maintained steady, actually increased. So in view of all that, we make a motion that the employer contribution rate beginning July of 25 be 18.62% for non-haz and 35.73 for CRS hazardous.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jerry. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to shift to the KPP Audit Committee report from Bill O'Mara.
Thank you, Chair. First is our draft June 30, 2024 external audit presentation with Ryan Graham from Blue & Company. Ryan?
Mr. O'Mara, do you mind if I introduce him for a minute?
Sure.
Yeah, this is Mike Lamb, CFO. Ryan is the lead partner for Blue & Company, and he's here today to go through mainly the draft opinion letter for the CERS ACFR, a letter charged with governance, to those charged with governance, which is really directed to the Board of Trustees, as well as our report or audit opinion over internal controls. Your packet contains a draft of the ACFR from, I believe, the 11th of November. We've had many drafts, or from the 13th of November since then, including in your packet, you have a draft from the 25th of November. So there's a little bit of confusion on the drafts that are in there, but Ryan's letters, 2 of his letters will be in the final draft or the final ACFR, and I'll let him explain which ones those are. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thanks, Mike. And thanks, everybody. Like Mike said, right here on your screen on page 153 of the PDF is our opinion, or the draft of our opinion that we intend to issue. And you'll notice, just to mention, we've talked about this before, and this is a CERS standalone opinion and financial statements. So unlike previously where it was a KPPA report, this is just the activity of CERS, and our opinion is on that on a standalone basis. But it is a clean or unmodified opinion, which is what you're looking for. Those first 2 paragraphs basically give you that we're not aware of any material modifications to the financial statements. The next paragraph gives the basis of that opinion, that we audited this under governmental auditing standards. And then it goes through the fact that these are management's financial statements, and kind of goes through the responsibilities of those. And then the next page really goes over the other information, so the supplemental and RSI schedules, and the fact that we looked at those in relation to the face of the financial statements as well. So again, clean audit opinion, what you're looking for, and these are just on CERS's financial statements. I'll say at a very high level picture, there were no new accounting standards this year that had an impact on the system. There were some changes. If you were to pull up last year's versus this year, there were some changes just based on the nature of the entity shifting from KPPA to CERS on a standalone basis. But otherwise, the bones of the report is very similar to prior years. Then on page 216 of the PDF, this is what we call the management letter. So it just communicates the fact that we did the audit. This is an internal letter, if you will. And it goes through some of your more sensitive estimates, like the investments valued at NAV is one of those. If you go on down to the next page, please. And then, of course, the OPEB and pension liabilities are also pretty sensitive and significant estimates. The next area, this is one that you've seen before with us. I think in the final version, this may actually, the X's will actually may go away. Your alternative investments or those valued at NAV are reported on a lag. So what's in the 630 report is about 3 months behind. So often this is just communicating that there is that lag being reported, but I believe that they'll be small enough that we may be able to get rid of those X's in the final version. And then the rest of this language is pretty standard and the way it has been in the past. We will get management representations before we issue the financial statements. Had no significant disagreements. And then again, referring to that RSI and supplemental schedules. And then if you can go to page 220. This is our third letter. We can't have just one, we gotta have 3 different ones, but this is what's called the Yellow Book opinion. This will also, the last one will not go in the full ACFR. This one will, as a final version, and this is our report on internal controls. We don't give an opinion on internal controls, but we do identify that there were, we do give an opinion, and it goes through our consideration of internal controls and that we identified no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses within the internal control structure. So if we were to have identified a significant deficiency or material weakness in internal controls, it would be communicated in this letter, but happy to report, we are not reporting any of those here. So it's just noting that there are none. So that is what you're looking for here as well. So we didn't dig into any details of the 74-page financial section of the ACFR, but I'm happy to answer any questions if upon your review you had any in those sections.
Anybody have questions, Ryan? Mike, would you like to add?
I don't have anything to add to Ryan's comments. I have some comments of my own when we get to the full ACFR, which I think is next on the agenda.
Bill?
I think it goes to Mike now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan, for your participation and for your team and the audit work that they've done over the past several months.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Beginning on page 222 is a full draft ACFR for the CERS system. It was ran on November 25th. Since then, we've made multiple adjustments to some wording. None of the numbers per se have changed, and we've kind of updated the MD&A from thousands to millions. And all of that is actually still being worked on a little bit today. There are a few cosmetic issues that we're having with our software, and we're working through our provider to clear them up. But in essence, this is essentially what the final CERS ACFR will look like. I believe it's 150 some odd pages in total. And as Ryan mentioned, there will be 2 opinions in the ACFR, their audit opinion and their report over internal controls. This has been very challenging, yet fun in separating the KPPA audit report from years past into 2 separate audit reports. But it's brought some clarity to your system, to some of the work that we do internally and how that's presented. And I want to give kudos to the accounting team for all of the work and effort that they've put in to doing this, as well as the assistance from other groups, the investment group, the communications group. Our IT groups had to run separate reports and work through some reconciliation issues to get our auditors on board. So thank you to everyone who's participated. The plan here is to get this draft version of the report approved by this board so that KPPA can do their statutory duty in publishing the CERS ACFR. So they are the entity that kind of does the administrative work for CERS, and they are responsible for publishing the ACFR. But being that this is the CERS's own ACFR, it is the board's responsibility to approve it for publication.
Mr. Powell has his hand raised.
Yes, sir. Gary?
Good, sorry about the mute, but page 199 in board books. I'll give Sherry a chance to catch up there for it. Down toward the bottom. Yeah, the reciprocity agreement. When you look at the reciprocity with the TRS and JFRS, when this was one published document for all of KPPA or previously as the KRS, this fit fine. But since this is our own separate CRS document, it makes no reference to whether there's a reciprocity with KRS. And I know many of our members are in both systems. And I didn't know if we should have something clarifying statement in that or not.
Mr. Powell, you are correct. We have modified that. I thought it was in this draft. Oh, you're in the 1113 draft. If we go to that page in the 1125 draft, so it's going to be down probably about 100 some odd pages. It has been updated to include reciprocity with KRS. So that is note. I will get you on page 276, Sherry. You will see that there are reciprocity availability to those with service in CERS, KERS, SPRS, TRS, and JFRS as well. So good catch, and that was one of the nuances that we had to be aware of as we went through these drafts to make sure that we accounted for things such as this.
Yeah, I guess not having a different draft was confused me a little bit on it. So, okay, thank you.
I would have to add that in my 40 years of preparing financial statements, that's the first person who ever read that far into the no disclosure. Goes to Mr. Powell.
Agreed.
That's the job.
All right, anybody have additional questions for Mike?
Well, I would like
Go ahead, Ben.
I would like to echo Mr. Lamb's appreciation to everyone that worked very, very hard to get this first standalone CERS report ready. I know it was quite an undertaking, and they've been working very hard, and just want to acknowledge that and appreciate their efforts. The other question I had is a matter of one word. And in the past, we have accepted the report since it's being done by an outside auditor. And today, Mike has talked about approved. So I'll be glad to use whichever word is appropriate in today's motion.
Well, Mike and his staff prepare the financial statements. And as the governing board, we have the responsibility for the financial statements. We can accept the audit report and approve the financial statements because those are our responsibility.
Good clarification. So I make a motion that we accept the auditor's report and approve the financial statements as presented. So moved.
I'll second.
Motion, second by Ms. Betty. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting financial report, adopting ACFR, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
All right. Next, we still have Mr. Lamb up, the GFOA ACFR letter. Mr. Lamb.
Thank you. So I believe it's on page 356. This is the comments we received from the GFOA when we issued last year's KPPA ACFR. And then these are going to be our responses to them and what we've done in the current ACFRs to address their comments. So, the first one had to do with specifying the group responsible for the financial report. So on the cover of the CERS ACFR, we've identified that as the Division of Accounting. They also recommended that we take prior year's management responsibility letter and letter of transmittal and maybe combine them, which we have done. The letter of transmittal in the past was really the executive director's letter. So we've put all of the management responsibility, the executive director letter, as well as the CEO's comments into one letter of transmittal. And it also directs the readers to the MD&A and identifies management's responsibilities in there. So there was 2 or 3 comments related to that should have all been taken care of with the current format that we have. There are still some page numbers that need to be validated when we finalize spacing. There's a couple places in the ACFR that we need to go back and update page numbers, so we hope to do that on Thursday after the KPPA board approves publication. We did have an error last year, 77% versus 0.77%, so we've done our best to make sure that hasn't occurred this year. And we've fixed it after publication on the website so that the current version of last year's ACFR has the correct percentage. And the current certification letters from our actuary do reference the actuarial standards of practice. I checked those this morning again, and so we feel that we won't have that comment going forward.
Well, congratulations again to your staff for getting that award from the GFOA. And go over again how many years that's been now?
So last year was the 25th year that KRS and or KPPA has received the award. This year we will apply for 2 awards, one for the CERS ACFR and one for the KRS ACFR, and hope to continue that tradition of receiving the award going forward.
Have we applied for the public, for the summary? I think there's an award for that summary report presentation.
Yes, there is a summary report for the SAFR, and actually, from my understanding, we just received that last week or 2 weeks ago. And there should have been a press release for that, and then there are some comments received from that group. So the communications group is taking charge of those comments. They were all very favorable, and they plan to apply for the SAFR award again after they issue the SAFR in January.
I believe it's called the Popular Financial Reporting Award. So
correct.
Took me a minute to remember the technical term for it. But. So we're doing a bunch of awards.
Yes.
Well,
no action taken on that letter, is that correct?
That's correct. Just to acknowledge the award and the feedback. So again, we thank the hard work that everyone's put in order to have high quality reporting for CERS and KPPA. Thank you, Mr. Lamb. And now we have the internal audit report from Ms. Coffey.
Good afternoon. The audit committee met on November 19th. This is a summary of what we discussed. This is for informational purposes. The first 4 items on there, what we just covered with the audit report and with Mike Lamb's presentation. And I'll just hit just a quick overview of the rest of the items. The IT team presented their annual infrastructure security assessment. There were 19 findings from that audit this year, 1 high risk, 9 moderate, 8 low risk, and 1 best practice finding. They are working right now on that high risk item. They're hoping to have it resolved by the first of the year. They have to work with a vendor to make a change to one of the items. Half of the moderate items have been resolved. They are actively working on the others. 3 of the low risk items have been resolved, and the others are currently being worked on as well. The IT group also requested approval from the audit committee to perform this audit next year. It looks at our security, It's very important. It is something we feel needs to be done every year. The audit committee did approve for that to be done, and they approved that up to $125,000. And in comparison, when this was done 2 years ago, it was $100,000. So it was adjusted slightly just for inflation. The legal team presented an update on information disclosures. There were 10 disclosures identified that impacted 8 of our members, and they also discussed the anonymous tips that have been received, and there are currently 6 open cases still under investigation. We also have 2 new audit staff members who have joined us since the last meeting. We have an auditor 2 position that's been filled, and we've brought in an interim internal auditor. We discussed our internal audit budget, and to this point, we still have 82% of our budget remaining, so we're on track. And it was asked at that meeting if our budget included the salaries of these new people that we brought in, and it did. When we created the budget, we did take into account being fully staffed. Internal audit currently has 33 projects scheduled for this year. 7 of them have been completed through October 31st. And we released 1 audit since the last meeting, and that is attached for your review. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those. If not, I'll turn it back over to Mr. O'Mara.
You're muted, Lyle.
Sorry, Bill. Okay, any questions for Kristen? I know she's excited to be back up to full force.
I am.
Okay. Bill, anything else on your agenda?
No, I just wanted to recap that it was a positive meeting all around. No findings from the audit, awards for the ACFR, and a completed report for this current year. So I think we'll stop there.
Bill, I'll take the opportunity to thank you for your service on the KPP audit committee. I know that is a little bit of a bear and takes up an awful lot of time. I appreciate it. Okay. With that, we'll move on to the investment committee. Dr. Hackford, would you like to take over from here?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you noted on the agenda, we have 2 items to report on this afternoon. The first, the investment policy statement, and secondly, the quarterly investment update. To put this in perspective, the investment committee has held 2 meetings. The first meeting was a special called meeting on November 18th to discuss the CERS investment policy statement, a statement that we've been working on for the past 8 months, and we feel we've achieved a good quality statement and for your consideration this afternoon. The second item basically is the regular meeting on November 26th, where we discussed a variety of things in terms of the financial outlook, as well as a performance report for the first quarter. Regarding the investment policy statement recommendation, the investment committee, after considerable discussion about the proposed draft, basically unanimously approved it, subject to 5 slight edits and adjustments, which I'll go through in more detail. And so we'll be bringing forward to you later, after our discussion of the investment policy statement, a recommendation for your ratification, that being to approve the investment policy statement as presented to everyone this afternoon. At the November 18th meeting, where we discussed the draft investment policy statement, we had considerable discussion. As I noted, over the past 8 months, we've talked about this. We've made adjustments here and there, particularly with the help of Wilshire, our consultant, as well as our staff, which we appreciate very much. And we talked about a number of issues, but basically the adjustments, the substantive adjustments, basically focus on increased governance over investment policy, number 1, and 2, providing investment staff with the needed flexibility to manage the portfolio as the committee hopes and desires. And regarding the Wilshire advice and so forth, they have spent a considerable amount of time working with us and the staff to make adjustments to the investment policy statement. And after the discussion we went through and adjustments that have been made, they indicated they feel that we basically have I hope I am quoting them correctly, and that we have sort of a state-of-the-art investment policy statement for the CERS to consider this afternoon. As I indicated, there were a number of modifications, and I'll just introduce those as well because they have been incorporated in the draft that you have this afternoon. The first one was in dealing with the introduction under the purpose, and a term in administratively to manage the assets was imposed there. Secondly, there was a request to have consistent terminology to ensure that the use of term of funds versus plans were used throughout the IPS. Thirdly, we discussed and considered the contract signatories, and that was changed from the CEO to the board chair. The fourth item was that the CERS council should review the documents before we approve those, which would be our regular procedure. And finally, on number 5, the 5th addition was that we would have a definition of risk included in section 2, subsection C4, to provide a clearer definition of risk, because that's certainly an important consideration. So that's just sort of an overview of what we did on the 18th. And basically, I would suggest we would like to have you consider the ratification of the investment policy statement as presented. I'd also like to remind everyone that we consider the investment policy statement a very important document, provides guidance to our staff, gives guidance to ourselves, if you will, and also to the public, and that this is also a dynamic statement, if you will. So if there are changes which we come up with and identify changes that should be made over the next year or so, we can take those up individually. But in effect, we think this document, which is the work of a considerable amount of work by our consultants and our staff, as well as by our committee, is a solid document for your consideration. And I would ask you for your ratification. But first of all, we have with us this afternoon, I believe, David, Craig, and Chris, to answer any specific questions that any of you might have, or I might try to do those myself. But please, if there are questions, we can try to address those at the present time. Any questions or further discussion of the investment policy statement as presented to you this afternoon for ratification?
If you have questions, David, would you like to give your opinion or thoughts on the document as it's presented?
Yes, sure. Yes, everything that Merle said, we spent quite a bit of time working on the document, and our goal was to, as Merle said, increase the level of governance. So you do that in a lot of ways. And these were, we just had a lot of really good back and forth and wanted to make sure that we accomplished the level of governance that your board here would want to exercise. So that was the goal. We think it's done a really good job of that. There's a lot to it. And then at the same time, we wanted to balance that with the ability to make sure that staff can efficiently implement and execute their levels of latitude as well. So that was the goal. I think we together, it was a big team effort, and I think together we got a lot of that done.
One thing I would add, just I think it will be helpful. I can't remember who made the suggestion. I think Eric was working on.
Mr. Chin, you are really hard to hear.
Okay, sorry about that, Betty. What I was going to add is one of the suggestions that also came out at the 18th meeting was to create an executive summary of the IPS publication as well. I think Eric is taking charge of that and working on that now. But I think that would be a beneficial document for the layperson.
Lyle, we're still losing you.
Can you hear me now?
Now you can, right? Please, thank you.
It may be coming and going. What I was trying to reference was the suggestion to create an executive summary. I think Eric is working on that. That'll be something that
Yes.
will be made public and allow, the general public to get a feeling and understanding of what the IPS says and how it relates to retirement information. I think it's a really good suggestion. I look forward to seeing that done as well.
Thank you. That was a good part of our discussion. I think it's something would be valuable for us to have, which could be on our website and so forth, so that people really understand the purpose and basically the general content of the investment policy statement. We could refer to it as a popular version or maybe an executive version, clarification version of the document. So because there's a lot of detail, as those of us that have worked on it know, and those of you who reviewed it know, it's a detailed document to give greater specificity, at the same time to communicate to the public about how we approach our decision processes in CERS.
The other thing I would note to the members who aren't on the investment committee, we did make sure that anything that comes out of the investment committee does require full board approval. So with that, I think Dr. Hackford, I understand you made a motion to accept the IPS with the 5 revisions.
Yes, did make a motion that the CERS committee or board ratify the recommendations as presented to you this afternoon. That's the motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor of acceptance of the IPS as presented with 5 revisions, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Steve, want to step in here and give us an overview of our quarterly investment update?
Sure. Give you a touch on the highlights. First of all, as Dr. Hackbark mentioned, we had a very robust discussion during the last investment committee meeting, both on current market conditions as well as outlook going forward. The portfolios had a very strong start to the fiscal year. The CRS pension composite produced a return of 4.90%, while the CRS insurance composite returned 4.78 for the quarter versus the benchmark return of 4.77. While the individual portfolio performance ranged from 4.70 to 4.92, and 3 of the 4 portfolios outperformed the benchmark for the quarter. Across portfolios, really the largest contributors to outperformance were the relative outperformance in the real return in real estate portfolios, as well as the overweight to public equities, while underperformance in private equity portfolio relative to its public equity benchmark was the largest detractor. That's something we've talked about at the last several investment committee meetings as well as the board meetings, and we are working with Wilshire. We did a presentation at the prior investment committee meeting, and we are working with Wilshire to bring forth maybe some alternative ideas as to appropriate ways to benchmark our private equity portfolio. As we discuss kind of the transparency of using a public equity benchmark plus a spread. That's pretty commonplace in pension markets. A lot of pension plans use that, and they've experienced a similar dislocation over the last year. As we know, public equity markets have done exceptionally well, and private equity markets have trailed. But I think that's something that we'll bring forward over the coming quarters as a suggestion, as Dr. Hackbart and Mr. Cheatham mentioned. Kind of the IPS is that living document, so that's part of the benchmarking in that IPS is something that we can update as we need, as we make recommendations and are approved by the investment committee and the board. Over the last 12 months, with broad U.S. public market indices reaching all-time highs, the portfolios produced very strong absolute performance, with the pension composite returning 18.79% and the insurance composite returning 18.73% over the last 12 months. The real return portfolio has really been the outperformer. It's outperformed its benchmark by almost 11% over the last year, which has contributed close to 150 basis points of outperformance at the overall fund level. Conversely, the private equity portfolio has underperformed that public equity benchmark, which again is the Russell 3000 plus 3% lagged one quarter by almost 23% over the last year. And that alone is responsible for anywhere between 175 and 225 basis points of underperformance at the overall fund level. We did cover that all of the portfolios have continued to deliver top decile risk-adjusted returns over the 3 and 5 year time periods, and that demonstrates the efficiency of their construction and management. We also talked about potentially including some additional peer universe comparisons for the investment committee and the board. And that really is to give an idea of, you know, how broad our plans are doing. In the Wilshire universe that we're currently using, I believe is Wilshire's broadest peer universe, most diverse. So we're going to try to maybe look at a couple of other peer comparisons that are more aligned with the CERS portfolios and the statistics for our specific funds. While October performance is not yet finalized, we hope to get that out this week. The portfolios did give back some of their first quarter performance, and we're down 125 to 150 basis points as markets cooled with strong economic data sparking a repricing of Fed rate cuts. We just closed the books on November on the markets. U.S. public equities had another very strong month. We're up over 6%. Non-U.S. markets were more modestly in the red, so they were down a little bit. Emerging markets were the laggards, down several percent. Core portfolios were up for the month, modestly as yields declined over the course of the month. Commodities and real assets had a kind of a mixed bag for the month, as we saw. Gold was down, natural resources were up, and real estate also had a positive month for the first time in quite a while. In our report, as requested by trustees at previous meetings, we're working with BNY to develop asset class level performance reporting for individual funds. And again, typically here, as we see on this screen, we're reporting all performance for asset classes at the trust level, so the insurance and the pension trust. We did present a report that we worked with BNY to develop that shows asset class level for the CERS portfolio specifically. We did note, however, though, given the current accounting and data structure within the BNY systems, we're only able to provide this information on a gross of fee basis. We're not sure what changes necessarily are going to need to be made at BNY or whether we can actually accomplish that, but we hope to bring something forward to the investment committee in future meetings. As of the end of the quarter, we discussed that from an allocation perspective, we have maintained a 3 to 4% overweight to public equities, and that's on continued strong market momentum and economic strength. And while the relative overweight that we talked about last board meeting to non-U.S. public equity markets performed well during the last quarter, our activity in October was really focused on moving the portfolios to an overall neutral stance from a geographic standpoint. And most recently, we've begun implementing a relative overweight to U.S. public equity markets versus non-U.S. public equity markets. And that's based on divergent economic and growth prospects. So over the balance of the coming months, we anticipate implementing a modest overweight to U.S. public equity markets. As of the end of the quarter, there were two issues identified as not in compliance, and that was the allocation of both the pension portfolios as well as the CERS insurance portfolio to public equities passively managed by KPPA staff. And those, the amounts noted, and that's a 20% limit, and the amounts noted were ranged from 20.1 to 20.4. We did note that those had come down from the prior quarter. So as we've been rebalancing the portfolios in the public equities, we have been bringing those down. And for the quarter, they were down about 150 to 200 basis points per portfolio. We also noted that the real return allocation for both the insurance portfolios as of the end of the quarter were below the 4% minimum of their allowable range, and they were both at 3.6%. We anticipate that all of these compliance issues will be resolved by the end of December, by the end of this month, through direct rebalancing activity, as well as capital calls from existing managers. We were also very happy and excited to report that Carrie Bass has officially started as the new compliance officer. She's already begun working on reviewing and overhauling the compliance function and reporting. We hope to make enhancements in that reporting going forward. Hopefully, I tasked her with by the next investment committee meeting, we should have something to put in front. It may obviously not be in its final form, but it could be substantially different from what we presented at the most recent investment committee meetings. So that was really the overview of the performance update for the quarter. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions of Steve? If not, that concludes the report from the investment committee. Again, I'd like to thank Ed Owens and Steve and our consultants, Wilshire, for the very hard work and dedication they devoted, and as well as the committee members, to the development of the revised investment policy statement. It's an important document for us. And I think everyone really put their shoulders to the wheel and did an excellent job. And I think we have a investment policy statement that we can be proud of and have confidence in as we go forward. So thank you, everyone, and turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Hackford, I don't want to leave yourself out of that list, Ed. I know you've been working on this and looking at it over the past several months. So I really think that this is one of those times that our IPS might be one of the best in the country. So I would encourage people to take pride in the work on this. So with that, I want to move on to the Finance Committee. Bill, are you recovered and ready to go for the second round?
Yes, very short one. Finance Committee met on November 25th, and we want to bring one item forward for the Board of Trustees ratification, and that's hazardous duty request. We considered a total of 9 requests for hazardous duty designation. And after KPPA staff reviewed, they recommended that all of these were determined to meet the statutory guidelines. So we unanimously approved the request of these 9 positions and bring them forward to the board for ratification. Mr. Sherratt is here if you have any questions, but we ask for ratification.
Okay. Anybody have questions with regard to the recommendation for hazardous duty request? Juan, anything you want to add on your end, sir?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. All right.
I'll
Great.
second Mr. O'Mara's motion.
Okay. Got a first from Bill and a second from Betty. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes have it. All right. With that, we're going to move to the next item on the agenda, the CERS election update and timeline. I know there's been some questions and concerns over a few different things with regard to the slate of candidates. I want to ask Eric to
financial information.
I'm sorry?
We have a financial update?
We did, yes.
No, a finance committee.
I'm sorry, Bill. Mike, did I cut you off?
Oh, I was happy to move on.
Love hearing the numbers so much.
I could be brief. I did go through some detail with the finance committee, but in general, I think on 521, the net position for C is 19.2 billion for the quarter ended 9/30. That's up 16.88% or 2.8 billion year over year. It's mostly due to the investments at fair value increasing by 16.85% or 2.7 billion. The largest increase is in public equities and as well as core fixed income. On the next statement, which is the combining statement of changes, you can see that we had 7 near the bottom. That's probably the second page. Yeah, that's 744,017. That's pretty much the change. It's an increase over what the change was last year's first quarter, which was actually a negative 298 million. The two pension plans show increases of 383 and 154. The two insurance plans show 146 and 61, which are also increases over the prior year's amounts for those plans individually. On the contributions report, which is on 525, what I kind of wanted to point out here is this net contribution line item in yellow for this non-hazardous plan is $31 million in the negative. And if we remove the net investment income of 56.4 million, you can see near the bottom of this chart, the cash flow for that plan is minus 87.4. That's due to there was a decrease in employer contributions when compared to the prior quarter. There was an increase in member contributions, but the decrease in employer contribution was tied to the rate drop from year to year. You guys just approved employer rates for next year earlier in this meeting. That could potentially also decrease the employer contributions. Now, the member contributions are up because there's a few more members and there's increased payroll in those line items. The insurance plans are the next chart. If you scroll down just a little bit more, they are also negative as anticipated because there's zero employer contribution rates for them. And then their cash flow is minus 25.1 for the non-hazardous and 19.9 for the hazardous. But that's to be expected for those plans. And then the next charts are the outstanding invoices. I just wanted to mention the new player in here. It's the Jefferson County Board of Education. They have a new invoice that has to do with past due retirement or insurance contributions for retired reemployed. So that's being caught up over a couple year period of time. The health insurance reimbursement. So that's a new player on this list. And then we have the list of penalty invoices and waivers. 20,000 were waived during the quarter, 20,000 were created during the quarter, and we had 32,000 paid during the quarter. The admin chart, I'm going to just mention the highlights there. Overall, we're right on line for a quarterly update there. The comments are in the note summary below. I do want to point out on the next page, I think it's 530, Mr. Cheatham pointed out an error that I had to go back and look. This employee paid FICA line item is misstated, as well as the retirement and health insurance line item. So we had an accounting entry that got incorrectly booked amongst those three line items. The total staff line item is accurate, but those three line items in and of themselves are misstated. And the updated budget to actual analysis will be corrected going forward. We have put in a new control to prevent that from happening in the future. I just need to test it over the next couple months to make sure that it works. So that was an error that may not have been caught had Mr. Cheatham not been diligent in his review of this budget to actual. So thank you. The following charts there are JP Morgan fees and interest, and that's all I have, I think, for the summarized update from the Finance Committee meeting.
All right, thank you, Mike. Bill, anything you want to add?
No, that covers it. Thank you very much.
All right. Anybody else have questions for Mike? Not now, I will move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the CRS election update and timeline. Kristen, I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of give us an idea of where we stand, and then Eric, if you don't mind, if you'll, because I know we've had some questions, concerns over some issues with that I want to make sure that everybody's aware of and comfortable with.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Well, I'll start us off with just a timeline overview. So these first few, the first 6 items, that is what we have completed as of today. And we're actually going to add one more item anyone who wanted to file a petition to be put onto the ballot, if you were not selected by the board to be on the ballot, you could file a petition. Those were due on November 30th. So this timeline was made before then, but I came in today, I didn't have any petitions on my desk. Granted, there could be some that show up while we were sitting in this meeting, but as of this morning, I had not received any petitions. If that changes and they were received by the deadline, I will update you. So I'm sorry, was there a question?
No, I'm sorry, Kristen. Go ahead.
The next items are what we have left. So according to our contract with our election vendor, they need a draft copy of the ballot by Wednesday of this week. And that draft ballot is attached. It is just the draft. We have some outstanding questions to our candidates. Once we get that information, we will update that so that it will be included on the information we send to the election vendor. On December 20th, we will provide that vendor with an address file of all eligible voters as of November 30th, 2024. That will let them go ahead and start the file processing it with the printer, so their print vendor can do a lot of work up front. We will provide them with an additional address file on January 15th that will be any changes to eligible voters that happened in the month of December. So it's a much smaller file, so they can get a lot of the work done before. It's a tight deadline, but ballots having to be sent out by January 20th. If we couldn't provide them the entire file before January 15th, that would really be pushing their print vendor. So that's why we provide the first file up front. That being said, January 20th this year is a holiday, so ballots are actually going to be sent out on the 21st. The statutes allow us to move that date if it falls on a weekend or a holiday. After the election opens, it's open until March 1st, then the election will close. The vendor will provide us with certified results by March 15th, and the new members will take over on April 1st. And in the past, they've been sworn in at the first meeting that takes place after that April 1st date.
Oh.
So that's where we are from a timeline standpoint. The other item attached other than the ballot was the letter we received from the Attorney General. That was one of the last items that was outstanding. One of the things we're required to do is send a letter, get the AG's opinion on the constitutional compatibility of candidates. And at the last meeting, we were still waiting on that, but we've received it, so I did include it for your review at this meeting.
Okay. All right, thanks, Kristen. Eric, you want to kind of give us an overview of where you think that AG's opinion puts us?
Yeah, so where it puts us is, there's no question that the candidates that are approved in that letter can be on the ballot. That letter goes further and says the AG's looked at it and they found no constitutional incompatibility. I think they also said no statutory or common law incompatibility either with them serving as trustees. And so I think until there's an issue with that's going to be the final word on that.
Okay. Kristen, just for everybody's clarification, because I know this came up at the last meeting that we had talked about this, and I wasn't aware of it, but the paperwork each candidate files in order to run, doesn't it, my understanding is it states, clarifies their status as far as whether they will continue to work or whether they have to retire or whatever. Kristen, we're not able to hear you.
Sorry.
Can you hear me now? Good.
Yes.
Sorry. So the application, one of the very first boxes that they have to check after they fill out their name and background information indicates that if there is a constitutional incompatibility issue with a current job, they are agreeing to either resign from that position or understand that they can't serve as a trustee. And you have to mark yes, that you agree to that in order for your application to be processed. And all of the candidates did select yes on that, on the application. We also discussed it at an informational meeting with the candidates that we held in August. We again covered what would happen if they were found to be have a position that was not compatible with being a trustee, and we included that in a write-up that we sent out to all the candidates afterwards for those candidates who weren't able to make the meeting, so that they would have that same information.
I understand there's probably some conflicting AG opinions out there floating around, but there has been an amended version of the state statute governing this since the original opinions. Eric, I think you indicated the only real way to get this clarified is somehow it end up in front of a court. Is that
right? And so, and so, you know, unless that happens, there's no reason to really second guess the Attorney General's opinion on this. It's kind of difficult to explain, you know, but I mean, the way I view it is, you know, the Attorney General has experience making these decisions. The court cases I've seen have been fairly deferential to those opinions. And so if the AG's office has done a review of these candidates and their positions and says they're constitutionally compatible, there's not necessarily a reason for us to do anything else at this point concerning that. I think that's a sufficient answer, given that the only way that opinion by the AG would ever be tested is if it were to somehow end up in court, and it's difficult to define how that would happen. I guess you can sum it up and say it's a bridge we will cross if we ever get to it.
Okay. I think there'd be an issue of standing until somebody tried to test it after being elected, correct?
Right. Right.
That's what I thought. All right. Kristen, we need to approve your draft ballot then, or are you good to go?
We're good to go. The ballot has already been voted on by the board. We did that at the September meeting. I just wanted to include a draft of it just so you could see it. If there's any comments on changes you would like to see, we're open to that, but it doesn't require approval or an additional approval.
Anybody have questions for Eric or Kristen, thoughts they want to put out there? Hearing none, we'll go on to, you need to have a closed session in order to discuss legal issues. Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Bill. Eric, you have the statement that needs to be read prior to going into session or going into executive session?
Yes, if you'd give me a minute.
I've got it in front of me if you want me to do it.
If you would do it, that would probably be faster.
Okay. A motion having been made in open session to move into a closed session for specific purpose, and such motion having carried by majority vote in open public session, the committee shall now enter closed session to discuss pending litigation pursuant to KRS 61.820C.